used to see Joe Torre, well, I did, playing this game, and then obviously managing this game a lot of times, and now it's a busy time for you, Joe, right now, right? You're coming in here as a baseball executive. You got a lot to do these couple of days, huh?
It's so different, Mike. and the thing about it is that, if I have to, although we'll have a meeting a little bit later on with both managers in the umpire's room, it's great to really enjoy it. I mean, I enjoyed managing. It's a little bit different now because it becomes a little more. It's tighter, I think, than when I manage.
When you walked in there as a player, you played in the National League where you had Willie Mays, Hank Aaron, Frank Robinson, yourself, Bob Gibson, Lou Brock, go down the line. What was it like when you guys all got Sandy Koufax, Don Drysdale, go down the line? Seriously, right?
Oh, yeah. No, you definitely took it seriously.
You guys were National Leaguers at that time, too.
National Leaguers. I was in the National League at the right time. We won a lot of ball games at that time.
Every game.
I think the only one we lost was the one in 71 in Detroit.
Right.
And I remember the first All-Star game I was a part of. I didn't play. I was the third catcher, added late in 1963 in Cleveland.
Right.
But you walk in, and at that time, when you look up above the lockers, they had tape. You put your name on tape. Now everything is a production.
Right.
And, you see Mays, and you see Aaron, and, Marichal, Koufax, Drysdale. And it was goosebumps for me because here I'm a 22-year-old kid just tiptoeing into the league. They don't do that anymore, by the way.
Right, they don't.
And it was a thrill. It was a real thrill. And of course, I started my first All-Star game right here. In New York at Shea Stadium.
64. That game, Callison wins it at a home run. What do you remember about the 64 game, other than, of course, the Callison home run?
Well, I remember, I was really excited. Drysdale was the starting pitcher. And the one thing that always comes to mind, and in fact, I see Ann Drysdale from time to time, and I see his kids, and I always remind them that your dad was really mean to me because when I went over the signs with him, I said, well, what do you want to use, Donnie? He says, or I called him Don. I didn't know him that well at that time. He says, well, fastball. One's a fastball, two's a curve, three's a slider. And I said, what about your spitball? What do you want to use? He says, well, I'll just throw it off the fastball. And I said, okay. Like the naive person I was. And 3 times in the first inning, if I'm not mistaken, I went back and said hello to Mayor Wagner.
Oh, really? He threw it by you?
Yeah. I mean, here I thought it was a fastball, and I just clunked it, 3 times in the first inning.
And that, believe it or not, that game was 49 years ago here, which is amazing when you think about it. And Joe is still here and still involved, obviously. And, you made an interesting point. It is so different, Joe. Trout, Harvey, Harper, they're almost as big as stars as the other guys, and they're kids. I mean, Harper's got, he's a baby. Harvey's on the mound. Trout already. These guys come in, they're like established in like a year now as big stars. I mean, the media does that. The world we live in does that. But they're already accepted as big stars.
But it just gives you an idea. We had ability back when, and again, you sort of had to prove yourself to yourself. These guys come in knowing they can do it already. And it gives you an idea that your mind rules your body in a lot of instances. And these guys come in here and take charge. I mean, Bryce Harper, he has got a sensational swing. And, of course, Trout came on the scene last year as Harper did. But they're big kids. They're strong kids. And the fact that I think they've really elevated our game because we've given these fans, these young fans especially, someone to relate to.
Talking with Joe Torre. Joe, I had this conversation with a caller, and then we furthered it later on when I was talking with Peter Gammons before. When I was a kid, Callison was a guy, lefty home run power, good arm and right. Good arm and right was a joke. Everyone had a great arm and right. Colavito, Clemente, K-Line, Maris. Later on, Parker, Ellis Valentine. Why do we not have great throwing arms anymore? Do we not accentuate it? Do we not work on it? Why is it no longer a big deal to have guys with great throwing arms in the outfield?
Well, I think that's the one area that we
don't work on it?
Well, we've gotten away from it. We don't take infield practice anymore.
I know that. I brought it up before. I used to come to the games and watch outfield drills, infield like we did in high school. Everybody cut off second, third. Short. You don't do that stuff anymore.
We don't.
No more infield drills.
But the thing about it, what you do now that you didn't do in the days you took infield, you take so many ground balls.
Right.
You take a lot of ground balls.
But the outfielders don't throw, right?
No, but they get fly balls hit to them.
Right.
You remember you used to hit across the infield while batting, while infield practice was going.
But do you think we don't have those great arms anymore?
I think you still have the great arms, but I don't think they're as finely tuned as they were back then.
In the old days, you didn't go first to third on those guys.
No.
I mean, you didn't go. You were a slow runner, but let's talk about guys who could run. You didn't go first to third on Clemente or any of those guys, Calavito or any of those guys.
I'll give you a Clemente story. My rookie year, I was 1961, and it's in Pittsburgh, old Forbes Field, and I hit a baseball. I hit a base hit to right center field, and here I am.
Right.
I'm gonna, as you mentioned, I'm not fast, but I ran hard.
You're a catcher.
I ran hard, but not fast.
Right.
And I went around first base. I'm going to take a big turn, and all of a sudden, the ball's behind me. Clemente fired it behind me, and I was tagged out. I didn't want to go into the dugout. And after the game was over, and you remember the old Pittsburgh ballpark, the visiting club was on the third base side, and you had to walk across through the home dugout to go to the clubhouse. My teammate at that time was Billy Martin, and Billy snuck up behind me. He says, "That'll never happen again, will it?" I said, "No, sir, it won't happen again, I promise."